Good morning. We are going to be learning Rambam Hilchos Chovel Umazik Perek Zayin Halacha Aleph Beis and Gimel. This halacha is known as Ezik She'ena Nikar, a very popular and broad sugya in Shas, namely in various places. It's mentioned. The main subtopic is main discussion that is in Masechtas Gittin. However, the Gemara Baba Kama brings it in, and there are other places that it's mentioned, but it's a very, very massive sugya and has a lot of details in it. We're not going to get into all of them, obviously, but we're going to try to get a broad picture of what this is. What's the problem with Hezek Shein and Nikar? When is it chayiv, when not, in a general way. So the Rambam begins Hilchos Chovel Amazik, Perek Zayin, that is Halacha Aleph, writes, a mazik mamen chavere, one who damages somebody else's property. Hezek she'ena nikar, he does it a hezek she'ena nikar, which he hasn't explained yet what that means. We'll see soon. Halachim days. Hoyul. Now here's the Rambam's explanation to what the problem is. Since the item hasn't changed and nothing has lost its form, now we're going to discuss what the double expression here is, and the Rambam, we know, does not use hyperbole and doesn't just use wording to as many times the Mepharshim say, although it means something there, but they have this concept, Kefal Hadavar, the pasuk in many times in Tanakh, and specifically in Ksuvim, the Kefal Hadavar, it wrote it twice for the poetic language, but we know that it means more than that, but that's the simple shot. But even the Rambam, there's no simple shot like that. He's part of Tashlum. Cause you didn't cause any visual damage to the item. And the Rambam didn't tire, but not tire. Now listen to this. This is where the Rambam really creates a problem. Again, I didn't see people really stressing, but to me it's an obvious point. But the Chachamim, the Seifrim, the Rabbanon, they said, Hoyil v'hifchiz demeya, since you, bottom line is, you brought down the value of the item massively, you made there a damage in the money, the value. So stop here. Having learned this, you would have said that the Torah says you need to do damage to the item, and the Chachamim said it's enough if you made damage to the value of the item. That's very clear to me. But he's going to undo that shortly. Okay, so now let's get to the next point. Halacha Beis, he gives examples. Somebody took somebody else's items, and he was impure, and he made the items impure, or he brought a sheretz and put it there. Now, the item looks exactly the way it looked before. Anybody other than a Meidik tzaddik would not see it. And the tzaddik only sees it because he has spiritual eyes. Or he mixed in tevel with not truma. Or not truma, with tevel with mesukim de keperes. But put in truma into that. Or another thing, wine. He had a barrel of wine, and they keep us yain nesach. Was like, but a drop of the yain nesach looks the same. Nothing happened except for that was used for avodah zarah. All right. Also, all of it. Bottom line is, you destroyed everything. The value. This is Rabbanan. So he's explaining to the Rabbanan the case. So shaman masha hifsid. Now here goes another halach. Mishalim nezek sholem min hayofa shemanachos. So he plays nezek sholem from meitav, the best. Kederach kol hamazika, like all the mazik. In other words, even though he's the rabban of the gemazik, but he's a mazik. Clear. Now let's go on. So right now we have a very clear understanding what's going on here. No, not so much. So halacha gimel, he says, wait. The dove is knas hu shekonsu eisaracham. There's a knas that the chachamim put on. Kedei shaliyeh kol echad ve'echad min hamashchisim. All those mashchisim, eilich, I mean the guys who are, they destroy things. The destroyers shouldn't come along and make tame the things that are pure. And he said he's water. And then he goes on to say that in the halachas that a child, a yerush doesn't have to pay it because it's a knas, and it only is amazing not b'shay. Okay, let's just see the Gemara. Gemara is in Gittin, Daf Nun Beis Amud Beis, Nun Gimel Amud Aleph. It precedes the famous Gemara that everybody knows about, which is the story of Bechur Beis Hamikdash. Right before that Gemara, the Gemara says, in the case of Ma'arav, when it says in the Gemara Menasech, what does it mean Menasech? Menasech literally means he spilled it towards the Avodah Zarah. Menasech Mamish, this is Ma'arav, even if I mixed it. So the Gemara goes on to display what's the reasoning, and in the end, the Gemara says that my time ma'ariv, malach ma'ariv hainu medame. You can't learn one knas from the other. This is all talking about knas and midrash not chai. Okay, but that's not so much of the midrash not chai. Let's see what the Gemara says later. Continuing later in the Gemara is machlekes amacheskia. You should be chayiv on hezek shenik. My time hezek shenik is a shmei hezek. It's called a hezek. My time over b'shegig potter. Why do they say potter? Because if you don't, if anybody makes a mistake and his matam is somebody else's items, he's never going to tell him. He'll keep it quiet. No. Potter. Why hezek shenik a loish me hezek? It's not a hezek. Why they say amazing chayiv? So people shouldn't go around being matama teres shchavei. When Batan he's going to be matama other people's things and say he's Batan. Okay. Now, what are they arguing over? What is the problem? We saw what the Rambam says. So there is a machlekes rishonim, at least it seems, and there's a discussion about that a lot. Whether it's a chassan in the mazik, it's a chassan in the nizik. From Rashi, it's mashman. I'm not going to get into the lashonis, but it's mashman. It's a chassan in the mazik. Why? You didn't do anything. The Eibush did it. The Torah made this damage. You didn't do anything. When you break an item, you broke it. It's either a mice of mazik. You didn't mice of mazik. You mixed together two things. The Torah said these two things together makes muscle. What's your problem? That's Menashemayim. You're like a goyim for the Eibush to do something. You're a great mouse. That's one approach. The Ramban says no. Since there hasn't been a change in the item, give it back. As is. So, it's yours. You got exactly what was before. There's no change. So, only because. So therefore, you're not chayiv. Okay. There's so much discussion on this, so many cases. But the main point is, as long as I can give it back to you the way it was, and you don't see any difference, I say there's a damage to the item. The item is not value as it was before. That's irrelevant. Okay, now Rambam said you pay the best, meitav, as it's called in halach. This is Gemara Baba Kama. We know the famous Arba of music. There are four principal damage concepts, right? man, animal, inanimate object, and so forth. Right? Sure, I burn my head and a fire. Comes along, Reb Chia says, no, I got 24 for you. And he mentions Hamatame, Ramadame, Ramanasik, things that we spoke about. Make something tummy. So the Gemara asks a question that Matame, Madame, Manasik, Memoino who listens, since it's Mamain, it's a regular. Why doesn't the other Tanai mention it? It's a regular case of Hezek. The answer is Manash. If Hezek Shainik Ishmei Hezek, so it falls under the topic of Hezek. It's one of the Mazikim. So just like Nezek, any Nezek. Why separate this from anything else? He has a Shainik Elisha Hezek, it's Knas, and we're not talking about Knas. That's not our discussion. So the Gemara says, maybe are you going to tell me he holds Hezek Shainik Elisha Hezek? If not, why does he mention it? It's part of Hezek, part of Nezek. So the Gemara says, no right. Tana Hezek the Minkra, Tana Hezek the Minkra. Rabbi Chia brought two types of mazik. A mazik that you see the Hezek, a mazik you don't see the Hezek. So there is Radakasha that there are other types of differences. What kind of difference is that? So what? Why do we have to mention it that way? And the Gemara says, Bish, Laimelitana the Don. How do we know Taka that all pay Metav? Well, the main point is there that you pay Metav. Right? The Gemara said, Kulon Ka'avas Shalom Metav. My time Asya, we learned it out from Psukim. Tachas, Nasina, Yishalim, Kesef. And again, I'm not going to get into the source, where, what, but trust me, you learned it out from Psukim. And the point is that Hezek Shainik and Hezek is the same thing. They all in the Psukim. Okay, so now we have the general view. Now let's get to the ha'aris and the problems that we face. So the Rambam starts off. You don't hear a word from him that it's not called a hezek. It sounds exactly mazik moment. It's mazik. Why doesn't he use anywhere the term it's not a hezek? He just says patzmatashlim. Now, as we said, he writes two things. What are those two things? He writes Patam in Torah, but he writes the Visay for him because you took away the value. He says, "What do you have to do that?" The Gemara says, "Knas." And why says the reason for the Nas? And he himself says the reason for the Gnas. What do you need more than that? And on the other hand, if there is such a svara that then what do you need the Knas for? What do you need svara of the whole svara of the Rabbanah, the Knas? Where it does not mention. It's not mentioned anything about this Hoyel B'Hipchus with the Mayor, right? It doesn't say anything about that. Now, the Mechaber in Hilchos Nezikin, Simon Shin Pei Hey, brings the Lashon Gemara and he says, doesn't say a word about Hoyel B'Hipchus with the Mayor. Then the Rambam is not usually follows the script of the Gemara. The Gemara says, why does the Rambam add Echad Min HaMashchis? Who needs that? Who put that in? Why did he put that in? Now, again, you could say he's trying to defend Klal Yisrael. Nobody goes around being B'Tamatei Yisrael unless you're a Mashkis. Okay, there's no reason for him to do that. That's not the place here. Defend them in Hilchos Deis and in other areas. I mean, it's really not a question. It just doesn't fit the rules of it. And then we come to the big question. He paskins that you pay Meitav. And the Maggid Mishnah says, look at the Gemara and Baba Kama. Well, I looked there. And the Gemara seems to say that it's part of Nezek. And as Rashi B'chlal Nezek came, because it says the same pasuk as Nezek. Either Tachas or Yishalem, but it doesn't matter. So, where does the Rambam get that since it's the Rabbanan, we still pay Meitav? That's not what the Gemara says. Why don't talk about the Rabbanon? Why says the Gemara is only talking about the Raisa? And the Pasuk, where there's no Pasuk by Knas. What's his raya that it's talking about the Rabbanons too? And then as we asked, what is this answer in the Gemara? Tana Hazeka the Minker, but Tana Hazeka the Lay Minker. Why? Why are we suddenly delineating different types of Hazeka? Okay. I want to suggest something which is not only based on what I think, but I've seen different approaches like that, but in different areas, which is going to bring it together all in the Rambam. And that is, it is clear to me that the words of the Rambam indicate that the Rambam has no doubt that a Hezek Shenik is a mazik. It's nothing to talk about. And it's only potem and tashlumim the entire. But he doesn't say Leishma Hezek. Now why? We'll see soon. Now, what is Negeya to know that it's a mazik? Very simple. The Tur in Hilchas Nezikim. Semishinai Ches. Right. Kashem Shasa Lignai Veligzal Mama Chaveri Kach Osala Hazik Mama Shalay. You're not allowed to be mazik somebody else's mom. Even if you don't have a nog, okay, that's two things. So you got to pay if he's mazik, but it's awesome. Rambam says in Hilchas Niskim Mom and Perek Halachos Aleph, those a whole arichas. He ends up Nesha Osala Odom Lahazik. If you're gonna pay mazik, and pay back. Osala Odom Lahazik will Shalamat says. You're not allowed to be involved in hezek. Why? Where does it say you can't do hezek? So the Bach says, and there's an interesting Bach. Bach says, don't say there is no isser in any pasuk, only to steal. But Lahazik Maman is doesn't have an isser. There's also is. Where, what's the source? And the Torah, it sounds, it has to do with them stealing type of this. Then he asks, you're not allowed to destroy your own stuff because of Baltashchis. So, what's the problem? All right. So, what I want to bring out is according to the Rambam is stressing, the same Isser of Mazik, a Dover, anything is osati lahazik, even as a shenik. It's a mazik, you're a mazik. Now, perhaps, again, I don't know this, but Rambam uses lashon min hamashchisim to stress baltashchis. These are people who are even baltashchis. You're mashchis. That's the issue. Yeah. Now, the issue is the source of the issue is baltashchis. And that's why he calls them Mashchis. Okay. There is a famous Chaim, which is basically based on that Ramban and the Ritva that we mentioned that says that the Isser, that the Chsarn is that you didn't, and also that you didn't, that you can say Aresh Shalach L'Fanav. What is that? Mazik Mamain is not because you made the guy lose money, because you damaged his item. It's a big you say. Karka. I'm not getting into where he says it and how he says it, but that's what he said. And that is the concept of Hezek. It doesn't say Dafka Lagabe Hezek Shanika, but Lagabe Hezek Shanika, that's the same idea. Hezek Shanika, there is no damage in the Chavitz. You weren't mazik the Gufa Chavitz. And even though you were mashchesit, you did terrible things, you don't pay money. You took away, you made the guy lose money. It doesn't matter. That's not what mazik means. And I think if you read the Rambam, that's exactly what the Rambam is saying. You are not a mazik. In Hilchis Minatayra, you're lacking in your chiyuv of mazik in order to pay. And the Rambam says, that midrabanan, they said that because you're being mazik the moment the mayim shehip is mayim, that's enough to pay. In other words, there was no doubt you're a mazik midrash also, but you're not chayiv. The chiyuv of a mazik is not for loss of money. Chachamim came along and said, no, we are going to mechayiv you for losing for loss of money. And that could be the reason that we said that the Rambam says that you're a mazik midrash, because midrash a mazik mitzad the iser could be is just the hifchis the name is enough. That's enough. Now, again, we medayik why he writes why both? So there's a kasha the Ramban asks, that Ramban that we mentioned, and he asks, there's a halacha if somebody's meichel shtar choiv. Guy, I sold the shtar choiv. Reuven owes money. Reuven has a shtar choiv over Shimon. And Shimon owes him money. Now, Reuven goes and says, there's a business out there. The bank sold it. You have a mortgage. You find out that your mortgage was sold to somebody else. That's a shtar choiv. So if Reuven sold his shtar choiv to Shimon, and Shimon walks away with the money. So now who has the chayiv? I mean, not the Shimon, the Levi. So who has the chayiv from Shimon? Levi. The Levi can go to Shimon and get the money. Then Reuven sitting with Levi. And he says, you know what? I sold you shtar chayiv. I got a deal. I'm going to be meichel shtar chayiv. So now Levi is messed over. Does Reuven owe Levi anything? And the answer is yes. But it's hezek shen nicker. What's nicker? Nothing happened to Shtar. Shtar wasn't drawn up. So the Ramban says you cannot say Harei Shalach for now. Why? Because this Shtar is worthless. What's happening? The Tzva explains it's hezek nicker. Since he can't say Harei Shalach, what's the answer? That might be the Rambam stress. Nishtana Dov is one thing. You change the appearance of the thing. But there's a second way. You took away what it stands for. In other words, what does a shtar stand for? Shibud. That's all a shtar stands for. That's nifsudu tzurosai. It's not any change in it, but its form. What it's for is God. That's why the Rambam brings both. Ulai. Okay. Now, let's go back. So why does he start off Halacha Aleph and tell us this whole thing? Well, obviously, the way we understand it, it makes a lot of sense. So then what do you need a knas for? The answer is like this. There's a shaila in the Achreinim. How do we look at this knas? Do we say it's a knas? Like any knas? Or do we say, no, it's a mazik? It's the Chachamim through the knas made hezek shenikah also a mazik. That's their shaila. I want to go a step further. According to the Rambam, hezek shenikah is a mazik. It's awesome. The Chachamim said that Iser is what I am now telling you is has to pay. Now, without the knas, you wouldn't have to pay. The knas is telling you telling you that we are accepting. We're going a step further. Our standards with the Rabbanan are that you have to pay for being mafachis demeyan. And that's why in Halacha Aleph, he sets it up right away. That to tell you that this even the Rabbanan is that mazik is really has to pay. I mean, I tell you the mazik, but even the Rabbanan said now why? Because the knas. And we're a knas, and might not come in there. All the halachas that follow. A year does not to play. A sheikh does not play. It's not. They didn't stop making it. It was with a knas. Oh, now let's go to the Gemara Baba Kama. All right, it says we learn out from Sukkim. And our question was, it's Rabbanan, which pasuk fits here? The answer is that it's something that Rabbanan is not shlumim. But in the mazik, he can still learn it out. Once the chachamim said he has to pay, he's still a mazik. He becomes a mazik. He's still the same mazik. A mazik is there. He's a mazik of Hibchis the Meir, which he was always. And since he's a mazik of we can learn it out from Tachas, Nesina, Yishalem, and all that. Everybody have a great day. Stark, Rambam,